What's going on, everybody? Haunted Beard here, and welcome back to my coverage of Shudder's 61 Days of Halloween. Today I'm going to be talking about their latest release, Sissy, which is not only a horror film, but also a bit of a comedy, drama, romance, and thriller. A whole lot of stuff going on in this one. Anyways, I gave it a watch, wanted to bring you my thoughts, so let's get into this thing. So Sissy tells the story of teen best friends Cecilia and Emma, who after a decade run into each other. Cecilia is invited on Emma's bachelorette weekend, where she gets stuck in a remote cabin with her high school bully with a taste for revenge. And our main lead, Cecilia, is a social media influencer, and this movie more or less is a satire on social media influencers and people of that nature, as it really kind of exposes and sort of pokes fun at the shallowness and self-absorption and narcissism of those types of individuals, the type of people who derive their whole self-worth and identity based on how many likes and how many followers they can get online. And that is who our main character is. The opening of the film is her addressing the camera, which is, turns out she is filming a video for her social media following. She's like a health wellness type, life coach type person. And everything's so pretty and perfect, and as the camera continually kind of pulls out, you get some of the surroundings that are outside of the frame that she would be presenting online, and you see some of her house, right? And her house is dirty and disorganized, and her life is chaotic and in disrepair, right? And so it's a very kind of on-the-nose type approach to this sort of thing. So Cecilia ends up reconnecting with her long-lost childhood friend Emma. She gets invited to her bachelorette party over the weekend. And throughout a series of a handful of flashbacks, we find out that there was some sort of event, some sort of traumatic event during their childhood that has affected Cecilia, that was involving another girl by the name of Alex, and she is going to be at this bachelorette party. And so that's kind of the setup for the main sort of tension and conflict there. Now, Sissy was kind of an interesting watch for me. The first half of the movie, I wasn't really vibing with it all that much. The tone was really kind of throwing me off because I understood the movie to be a horror comedy, you know, kind of a satire on the whole social media influencer type thing. But I feel like the first half of the movie, the tone it just kind of threw me off because it plays things quite serious and quite dramatic. And so it kind of has sort of this heavy dramatic element to it while also having little bits of sort of the satire in it. And so I just felt like it was just playing itself, it was taking itself way too seriously. A couple other things in the opening half is there's a handful of kind of flashback sequences as we flash back to the girls when they were younger. And the movie kind of uses this from a storytelling perspective to kind of fill in some of the background and some of the gaps. And I just wish there was a little bit better way to kind of give us this information. I feel like oftentimes flashbacks are just kind of lazy. It's sort of a lazy technique, storytelling technique that just doesn't really work all that great. And then also, too, there's a couple just kind of tired sort of tricks that they do with the dream sequences where, you know, something crazy happens and then a character wakes up and, oh, it was just a dream. They do that twice, and those are just things that are just tired at this point. However, once we get to the second half of the movie, it kind of settles in and sort of shifts gears to become more of a satire comedy. And I think sort of the comedic elements in the second half actually work pretty well. And so the second half of this movie, I actually had a pretty good time with and enjoyed quite a bit. And I'll just say, it is kind of a trashy type movie, but it is kind of fun. And the risk that you run with movies like this, where you're, again, kind of poking fun at the whole influencer type person, is you end up having these characters in the movie that are just as shallow and narcissistic as the people that you're poking fun at. And that's kind of the case here. There's really not a whole lot to the characters. However, I will say our lead, played by Aisha D, I believe this is the first film I've seen her in, she's really solid. I really like her character. She does have some, I guess, kind of some depth and some complexity and some creepiness to her, and I think she really hits the performance really well and does a solid job. And so she is really what kind of carries you through this thing. And her character just becomes more fun to watch as the film progresses and she becomes more unhinged. And I just like this idea that the movie kind of says, like, people's desire for connection and for friendship can ultimately turn them into a cold-blooded killer. I just kind of like that idea. There is a particular scene where something violent just occurs and she's all freaking out and you know, traumatized and everything, and she quickly pulls out her cell phone to check her Instagram account to really sort of get that hit of dopamine, right? So she can see all of her followers increasing and all the thumbs ups and everything like that, and it just like calms her down and she's happy again. I just kind of like that scene. It's just funny to me. The kills in this movie are pretty fun and I think they work pretty well. There is a bit of a slasher kind of vibe to this in the second half once the horror elements kind of click into gear. And so I kind of enjoyed that aspect. There's a particular scene, well, I'll just say there is really kind of a creative, unique choice for a mask, and then there's a direct nod to Halloween that I enjoyed. And I also think the ending is pretty solid. It's funny, it's gory and gruesome, and I just think that it was probably the best way they could have ended a movie like this. And so kudos for sort of sticking the landing. And so all in all, like I said, first half wasn't really vibing with, but they really kind of turned things around in the second half of the movie. And in my opinion, that's kind of the more important of the two halves, I guess. And so in the end, had actually a pretty good and pretty fun time with this thing. I think for an overall grade, I'm going to be probably a 6.5 out of 10. And so I would recommend it if you are interested in it at all, or it looks like you might like it. Yeah, give it a watch. I think it's worth checking out. So those are my thoughts. Hit me up down in the comments, though. If you've seen this thing, let me know your thoughts. Would love to hear from you. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and if you like content like this, that is what I do on The Haunted Beard. It is all horror and thriller movie content coming at you. So hit that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. Next up on Shudder's 61 Days of Halloween is Deadstream, which is a found footage horror film. I am looking forward to it, and I will see you next time on The Haunted Beard.